Hello again, fellow audiophiles. I am Wave Theory, and Happy New Year. We are coming right down to the end of 2024 here, and I thought it would be fun to do some year-end roundup videos of some sort, and then, wasn't quite sure what to do. And then it came to me, I'll do some top 10 lists. And so as I got to thinking about it, I figured that it might be fun for me to talk about my 10 favorite pieces of audio gear that I reviewed during the calendar year of 2024. And as I did that, I realized that there was an entirely separate list, maybe a little bit of overlap, but a mostly separate list of different pieces of audio gear that I thought were really important to the market, to the community, or to the brand who made them in some way, shape, or form. And so that's going to be a second top 10 list. So this is going to be a two-part year-end series. Part one here is going to be my top 10 favorite pieces of audio gear I reviewed in 2024 and why. And then part two is going to be my view of the top 10 most important pieces of audio gear that I reviewed in 2024 and why. So, right after shameless self-promotion, let's dig into Wave Theory's top 10-ish favorite pieces of audio gear that I reviewed in 2024. Here we go.
Hello. I'm one of the reasons that Wave Theory can't spend all of his money on audio gear. He wants you to know that your support is vital for keeping the channel running. So if you enjoy Wave Theory's bussin' review riz and no-cap review style and want to encourage him to stay in the basement so I don't have to listen to his dad jokes as much, like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can also send him a donation on PayPal or sign up for the Patreon. Links are in the description. Now on to the review.
Setting the stage just a little bit more here for my top 10 favorite video here. Just because something is not on this list doesn't mean that I don't like it. These are not the only 10, roughly 10, pieces of audio gear that I heard this year that I liked or really liked. It's just that it's a top 10 list. These are the 10-ish that stand out to me as pieces that when I look back and think about them, I really enjoyed listening to them, getting to know them, or just some other facet. They stuck in my mind as things where, hey, that was really cool. And I will explain why I thought of that about each piece as the video unfolds. But I do want to make it clear that just because something I reviewed is not on this list doesn't mean that I didn't like it necessarily. It's just not quite in the top 10 for me. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. Before we get into the list proper, let's talk about a handful of items that would be on the list if not for something. All right, the first one is going to be the LTA Z10E. Now, I bought the LTA Z10E here in 2024, and it is one of my favorite pieces of audio gear, period, from any year. It would easily be atop this top 10 list here in 2024, but I am going to use the thinnest of technicalities here and say that, you know what, I actually got my first review unit of this piece back in 2022, so I didn't actually do the full review in 2024. As I said, completely thinnest of technicalities here. So this is an amazing piece. I love it. It is my current favorite amplifier, but I'm going to remove it from the top 10 list for that very thin technicality and so that I can get other things on the list. Another piece that I acquired and loved here in 2024 is the Lampezator Baltic 3 DAC. Now, this is not going to be on my top 10 favorites list because the video I did for it wasn't really a review. And it's not really a review because you can't buy a Baltic 3 brand new anymore. You can buy a Baltic 4, but I didn't hear that one, so I didn't do a formal review of it. The video that I did for the Baltic 3 was a What Gear is My Gear series video, and it was mostly done so that you as the audience can know what that DAC sounds like when I list it in my test gear, because I list it there a lot. And I list it there a lot because I really love it. It is one of my favorite DACs. It complements my Z10E so well, and I have enjoyed listening to that combo immensely, both for personal listening use and for review work. But again, because you can't buy this one brand new, and because therefore it wasn't really an actual review video when I made a video about it, it does not make the top 10 list. And finally, for the would-be on the list, if not for, is going to be the Ferrum Vondla DAC with the Hypsos power supply. The sound of this DAC was really fantastic and enjoyable, and was one of the first DACs to make me look at my Berkeley Alpha Series 2 DAC and think, do I really still need you? But there were some software or firmware and usage bugs in this one, and this was an OG unit. This was not the Golden Sound Edition, and it was not the new HP edition either, so maybe those things have cleared up in the newer units. But with this OG unit, it needed a firmware update immediately, and it just had some other little software quirks and bugs in it that made it really irritating and frustrating to use. So even though it sounded great, I can't comfortably put it on this list for the reasons stated. Alright, now let's get into the top 10 list proper. Starting the list off at number 10 is the iBasso DX180. Now, I could have put either this one or its sibling unit, the DX260, on here, but went with the DX180 because it's the first one that came along, and it really just grabbed me more because of how new and interesting it was from the get-go. I think the DX260 is a little bit more technical and does sound a little bit better, but it sounds a little bit different, a little bit more neutral. So on this list, we're going to go with the DX180 because it is a little bit more fun. So the DX180, it is warm, it is smooth, it is refined and punchy. It's one of the most fun, truly on-the-go listening experiences that I've had in any year. It's a bit pairing sensitive because of its warmer and punchier sound, but with an IEM or a headphone that agrees with it, the DX180 is a really great listening experience, and you can take it with you. It's also reasonably priced, at least on the scale of audiophile gear. So yeah, the iBasso DX180, number 10 on my list of favorite pieces I reviewed in 2024. Number 9 is the Linear Tube Audio Velo. LTA sound is magical. This amp brings that magic at a comparatively reasonable price and brings the option of endless tube rolling along with it. You get a neutral but smooth and refined sound with the Velo, and even though it doesn't have an output transformer, it's just as comfortable pushing low impedance headphones as it is the high impedance headphones like the Sennheiser HD600s and Beyer Dynamic DT880s of the world. The only real drawback is that it only has single-ended inputs, so DAC matching takes a bit more care than many similarly priced headphone amps, but even so, I really enjoyed my time with the Velo, and it easily makes my top 10 favorites list. Number 8 is the Xduo XD05 Pro. This one was just fun. There are different DAC modules, the ability to roll op amps, huge flexibility, and it also sounded pretty darn good. The amp can drive most headphone loads with relative ease to boot. The sound, while excellent, isn't necessarily state-of-the-art at a technical level for a transportable unit in 2024, but what is special about this unit is that flexibility. You can really dial in the sound you want with this device. Then you can use that sound while traveling or even at your desk. Oh yeah, it has a desktop mode too. The design makes swapping the DAC modules and op amps really straightforward. Running through all of the options on this one was among the most fun audio things I did in 2024, so that's why it's number 8 on the list. At number 7, it's a tie. Okay, so remember I said this is a top 10-ish list. So at number 7, we have the Schiit Mjolnir 3 and the Violectric HPA V222 headphone amps, both coming in at $1,300 US. These two amps are tied on my list because they make the list for basically the exact same reason, but each being half of that reason. Simply put, they're both likely the best headphone amp you can buy at $1,300 in in 2024. The Mjolnir 3 being the best headphone amp for loads under 60 ohms of impedance, and the V222 being the best for headphone loads 60 ohms of impedance and higher. They have slightly different sound signatures to each other, but that doesn't change the fact that for the right loads, they are both easily better than any other amps I've heard under $1,300. Now, some thought I didn't like the Mjolnir 3 in particular when I reviewed it. My biggest complaint about the Mjolnir 3 wasn't about the amp itself. I thought the community got out a bit too far over its skis when it started making claims that the Mjolnir 3 outperformed numerous amps priced 2 to 3 times more expensive. I can't support that claim in general. Sure, there are a couple of individual amps more expensive than it that I think the Mjolnir 3 challenges, but for the bulk of amps that are $2,500 and up, hard no. That said, good luck finding better listening experiences from headphone amps at $1,300 in 2024 than you can get from either the shit Mjolnir 3 or the Vio HPA V222, given that you drive the right impedance loads with each of them. So, again, it's a tie here at number 7. These are both great headphone amps. Check them out. Favorite product number 6 is the SMSL DO200 Pro. This DAC has 12 Cirrus Logic DAC chips in it, but they work together to create a sound that is so smooth and refined for its price. The DO200 Pro is my current favorite so-called Chi-Fi DAC. It has carved out a use case in my numerous setups that I use around the house. And I only use stuff I like and I know I can trust in the setups that I use here in my own home. The DO200 Pro also shows that measurement excellence and great subjective sound don't have to be enemies. Throw in that it has a great selection of input types, variable output, and a remote control, and we're talking about a really high-value piece of hi-fi gear that sounds uncommonly natural and lifelike at its price. Great job on this one, SMSL. More like it in the future, please. Number 5 is the ZMF Atrium Closed. Probably my favorite ZMF I've heard so far, granting that I haven't heard either Caldera yet. Even so, the Atrium Closed is a fun, dynamic, and technically solid listening experience that plays well with most music genres. It's also high impedance, which makes it a high-end headphone that's a good match to many of those OTL tube amps like a Bottlehead Crack that several of us have lying around. And there aren't very many such headphones out there. It was for that reason and the fact that I reached for this one a lot when I had it here that I started seriously considering if I should start budgeting for this one. I came very close to so doing. So if it's good enough that I start asking myself if I should buy it, it goes on my favorites list. Ergo, here it is. Coming in at number 4 is the Nimbus HPA US5 Pro, a really high-end solid-state headphone amplifier. This is the best headphone amp not named LTA Z10E I've heard to date, and it has the Vioelectric V200 series-like warmth and deliciousness to go with it. Basically, those things together are an auto bid to this list. It drives just about everything and does so really well. For most of the time I had this one, I also had my Z10E on order. But this amp made me start having those thoughts that sound something like, well, the Z10E is tube and the US5 is solid state, so I actually need both of them, right? Right? We've all been in that headspace, haven't we? Please tell me I'm not alone. But as with the Atrium Closed, if it makes me start really thinking about how I can buy it, and if I should, it's gotta go on the favorites list. So here's the Nimbus HPA US5 Pro at number 4. For number 3, let's get controversial. We're looking at the Dana Cable Lazuli Rhapsody. On an original Hi-Fi Susvara, this cable makes even the most ardent cable denier question what they think they know. I was actually angry with how good this cable makes the OG Susvara sound. I mean, over the Hi-Fi stock cable and several other really good aftermarket cables, the difference is staggering. And I know how it comes across to talk up an over $2,000 cable. Like I'm a few fries short of a Happy Meal. And that's part of why I got so mad. It does such a good job arguing for itself that I can't deny how compelling the argument is, even though the price seems farcical. After the rage subsided, I was prepared to beg Dana Cable to let me hang on to this one. Literally, I was trying to figure out what might be the most effective email-based groveling possible. Fortunately for me, they offered to let me hang on to it as a long-term loan to use as a reference. Now, let's be clear. They did not buy my good favor by telling me I could keep the cable before I did a review. No. All of that stuff about figuring out how to most effectively beg was true. I was doing that before they said I could hang on to it, and I thank them for that because I was about to thoroughly embarrass myself in that begging. So, on the list, the Rhapsody goes at number 3. My number 2 favorite audio product this year is the Black Ice Audio Aries DAC and headphone amplifier all in one. I spent an hour gushing over this thing in my review. I wanted to keep it badly. I had to send it back, and I miss it. I don't really have a specific use for it, but I still think about buying one every now and then. This piece reset my expectations on what's possible for an all-in-one DAC amp. It is warm, smooth, refined, and punchy. It also has lots of customizability options with onboard sub-bass and per-channel tone controls. It is also a vacuum tube-based unit with the common 6SN7 tube type so that the tubes can be rolled. Its amplifier pushes just about everything wonderfully. The Aries was the last piece of audio gear Jim Fosgate designed before his passing, and wow, what a last gift to the audio world. And as I said, I still have thoughts about how I can get one of these in here permanently. They're pretty persistent thoughts too, so let's see what happens in 2025. And number 1 on my top 10 favorite pieces of audio gear for 2024 list is the Dan Clark Audio E3 closed back planar magnetic headphone. I liked the E3 when I first reviewed it in early 2024. I'm growing to love it more and more as time goes on. For a while, I had been looking around for another planar magnetic reference that wasn't a hi-fi man for more variety of test gear and wasn't as difficult to drive as something like a Modhouse Tungsten. The E3 easily checked both those boxes and did it as a closed back to boot. Its tuning is nearly flawless. It is very resolving. The dynamics aren't world-beating, but they are far better than what I experienced from Dan Clark's own top-of-the-line models in the Expanse and the Stealth. So as with some of the other items near the top of this top 10 list, being considered for purchase gets the E3 on the list. But the fact that I actually went out and bought one, and did so before the other units I considered, puts it at the top of the list. So yeah, I bought this one, enough said, and I don't regret it in the least. Okay, so there you have Wave Theory's top 10 favorite pieces of audio gear reviewed in 2024. I hope you enjoyed this list. Thank you for watching, and remember, there's going to be a part 2 of my view of the top 10 most important pieces of audio gear in 2024 coming out very soon. And if you watch this video several days after release, that top 10 most important video may already be out, and there is a link down in the description. So thanks again for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe, comment, check out my PayPal, my Patreon, and generally do those things you do to support YouTube channels. And as always, enjoy the music.